did you have for tea today, Pete?
Oh, I just had a couple of bickies and a cup of Earl Grey tea, actually.
Did you?
Yeah. Why do you ask?
Well, you might not know that your tea bag could have come with a side dish of microplastics.
They're bloody everywhere, aren't they, these microplastics?
That's right, Pete. They can be tough to avoid completely, but luckily, Mindaroo has created a helpful ebook so that you can be more conscious of what's going into your body and how it's affecting your health.
Yes, it's especially important if you've got young children, so check out the free guide at mindaroo.org/ebook. Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life. It's Gideon Haig over here.
And it's Peter Lawler over here. Sorry.
Welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast.
And tonight we're independent of a podcast machine.
We are. Somehow we've managed to lose the podcast machine at some stage in the last 24 hours.
If you've seen the podcast machine, could you please tell it to come home?
Yeah. So even though we're actually using these microphones, it's sort of like, it's a bit of a sort of a Milli Vanilli effort. We're just so used to them, we think we might as well talk into the dead air. Anyway, we're gonna soldier on because that's what the teams are doing. They're running on fumes, as indeed are we all after this test series and after 2 days of this extraordinary Sydney test match. We've probably got one more day to go. With India 145 runs in the lead, 4 wickets to fall, on a day where the ascendancy has fluctuated like, I don't know, the NASDAQ index. It's been quite extraordinary the way it has gone backwards and forwards. Just when you've written your piece, you have to rewrite it. I think I've scrapped half a dozen pieces today, but we finally got there.
It was one of those days where you just could not grasp the essence of what had happened, could you?
No.
It was one of those days where it was almost like the players had run out of puff. They just could not be bothered playing any more test cricket. You've given up on
I've given up on the microphone.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like they couldn't be bothered playing test match cricket anymore. They're preparing for the IPL or something. They just had enough. And look, maybe that was to their advantage because the guy, Rishabh Pant, was probably the guy who profited the most on the day, and he did what he does. He batted like a kamikaze.
Well, he batted in the completely opposite fashion to that which he'd batted on the first day.
Yeah.
He battled and scrapped and scavenged 40 on the first day from 98 balls and looked like he could get out any other delivery. He was clearly had the words of his coach echoing in his ears about the irresponsible shots that he had played at Melbourne. So what does he do? He goes down and he plays totally irresponsible shots, but somehow they are the antidote to batting on this surface.
Walks in the 14th over, India a 3 down. What does he do first ball?
It's a 6 back over Scott Boland's head.
And I suspect when he walked back into the dressing room, he said, "Stick that up your ass, Gordon." Playing properly ain't for me. But it's not. And the other highest score of the day, of course, was Beau Webster, who played in completely the opposite manner.
Yes, he played very sensibly.
Beautiful.
He played very decisively. He was very poised. He looks like a fresh cricketer, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
So we're getting everything in sort of reverse order, and because everything came from every conceivable direction at the moment.
So we started the day.
All right, we'll start at the start.
Start at the start.
Start at the start. That always usually goes down well, starting at the start, and it was a pretty extraordinary start too.
Well,
It started as it meant to continue because we had Sam Constas in the Sam Constas Experience, as I'm now calling him.
The Sam Constas
I've turned him into a prog rock band.
Were they a short-lived prog rock band?
I
think he's the least prog rock cricketer I've ever seen.
No, is he King Lizard and the Wizard Gizzard though?
I don't know. He's sort of like
he's got something. There's something about
garage punk.
He is kind of phenomenal and mercurial, and he played the way people have now already come to expect him to play after 6 days of Test cricket. He played one amazing shot, which was the ramp over off. Was it off Bumrah? It was off Bumrah, wasn't it? Over third man. The third man had come in to slip. He plays the scoop. It goes for 6, and everyone cheers and everyone's happy. And he played one other amazing shot, dancing down the wicket to Bumrah, flogged him through mid off for 4. But I wouldn't want to be next in when Sam Constance is batting because he would be constantly in and out of your seat, wouldn't you? You think, see him winding up. Okay, oh no, he's still in.
He does have a reasonable defence. He doesn't.
That's the strange thing about it. It's the strange thing about it. That is not the way that he's played first class cricket so far, is it?
And he bats like a guy who doesn't trust his defence. Because that's what that sort of hell raising batting's about. It's perfectly suited, unfortunately, to this pitch. I reckon that style of batting, as Pant showed us later. And because I thought at the start of the day that, having seen what India had not done the day before, like they batted all day for 180 runs. I thought Travis Head would be the make or break guy in this innings because he would be the guy who pinned the ears back and, so it doesn't matter what the conditions are, I'm going to have a crack.
But if you'd been able to delay Travis Head coming out to, over 35 rather than over 15, then things might have been different. Things might have been better set up for him. But as it was, Bumrah removed Labuschagne and Siraj removed Constance and Travis Head was picked up by Siraj soon after. So all of a sudden Australia 439 with Beau Webster playing in his first Test match coming to the pitch and the complexion of the day has altered entirely.
But Beau Webster and Steve Smith got together for 60 odd runs.
Well, I thought Steve Smith looked terrific today.
Me too.
He looked really decisive, didn't he?
He's playing better as this series has gone on, better and better. He's really back in the zone. And in fact, it was a surprise when he got out to the new bowler.
Well, the nervous 9,990s, as I put it in my copy today. He was 5 runs away from 10,000.
I should subscribe so I can read your copy. What is it? The nervous 9,995.
Yes. Well, he was 5 short, and Prasid Krishna, who'd coming up the round weekend and had struggled for his length, came on at the Paddington end and suddenly pitched one up and nicked Smudger off.
It was out of the blue, wasn't it?
It was completely out of the blue against the run of play. Prasid Krishna, I saw him during the Australia A, India A games, and I thought he's probably the next best seamer in this team. So I was a little bit
saying that.
Yeah, I thought he would get a run before the end of the series because he's got the best wheels. His issue has been stringing together consecutive games because if you look at his first class record, he hasn't played nearly as much as he should have. Given
he's
his
got a very
age.
good first class record, hasn't he?
But he's got
average in the low 20s.
He's got lovely action, lovely repeatable action, and he's very tall and he's pretty slippery.
Played 2 tests prior to this, didn't he, in South Africa? But didn't bowl all that well, I'm told. So Webster was a revelation, I think. I really liked the way he batted. I wondered if he exploited that natural advantage he has of being very tall.
Yes, he is extremely tall.
He is ridiculously elongated, Gideon.
Yes.
But
he looks like Tony Gregg. He reminded me of Tony Gregg to look at today. Did you think that? He was standing up tall, thin, sort of a bit sort of Germanic in his sort of movements.
Did you want to buy some memorabilia every time you looked at him? But I think that height allowed him to, because the uneven bounce on his and the bounce was steepling at times, allowed him to get on top of balls that others didn't get on top of. But he played with great confidence, sort of clarity.
And defensive soundness too.
And just didn't seem nervous at all.
No.
I thought it was a great innings. I was almost surprised when he got out. What was 105 deliveries, 57, 5 fours. He was out there for the best part of 3 hours.
He was the one batter who didn't seem to think that there was a ball out there with his name on it. Didn't approach it with the same kind of fatalism as some of the other batters today. But,
and I thought that actually that he and Smith were going to run away with it. And Smith was dismissed, and then a few others started to fall around Webster, didn't they? Carey got to 21, and interestingly enough, somebody said to Krishna, you go around the wicket to this bloke and bang. I think he's been dismissed 6 out of 7 times in this series from bowlers who've gone around
the wicket. Okay, through the gate.
You can trust that stat because it's not one of mine.
Okay,
I stole it.
Okay. Pat Cummins came in and hung around for a while,
but couldn't do what Pat
nicked off quickly. But look, the main issue, the thing that absolutely has spellbound us all day is how is Jasprit Bumrah? about 2:00 this afternoon, we suddenly saw footage from from the basement of the SCG. Bumrah being ushered into a dark sedan with tinted windows, all very mysterious, accompanied by a solicitous attendant, and disappearing out the exit in the direction of a hospital for scans.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because he didn't hobble off, he didn't grab at anything.
He didn't,
in fact, he jogged off.
He'd come off in the first session. He came off for about 3 overs. Now, you didn't necessarily...
But he comes off a lot.
He does. He comes off often to muck around with his boots, sort of...
Sorry, everyone.
To have a bit of a massage, bit of a rub. So you didn't necessarily feel disconcerted by that. But he bowled 1 over after lunch, and his speeds were down, and then he disappeared, and you weren't necessarily concerned, but there was a palpable change, because all of a sudden Virat Kohli was ordering everyone around like a traffic cop.
Yeah, they're going through captains like you go through T-shirts, don't
exactly.
they?
Now, Pete, we all love to see a beer snake emerging in the crowd at a cricket match, but what happens once all that plastic is discarded?
Well, Gids, it all has to end up somewhere, doesn't it? And unfortunately, the research has shown that a lot of that plastic is ending up inside our bodies.
That's not good. So what can we actually do about it?
Well, it might not be possible to rid yourself from plastics completely, but you can start by ditching single-use plastics like plastic bottles and bags and swapping them for reusable options.
I've got an update on Jasprit Bumrah.
Yes.
Jasprit Bumrah has a back spasm.
Yes, yep.
Now, that's odd. The medical team is monitoring him, so let's see.
That's from Prasid Krishna at the Presser tonight.
That's right,
yeah.
But do you go for a scan when you've got a back spasm?
Yeah.
It's an odd explanation. Hopefully it is only a back spasm, and hopefully he can bowl again in this game.
There could be nothing. Sometimes back spasms are pretty bad. You know, they're not always minor, and they often come about just through overexertion or fatigue, and they can be kind of hard to punch through. I mean, players have missed test matches for back spasms in the recent past. So Bumrah would have ended today with his pads on, waiting to be next but one coming in, but the medical staff will be pouring all over him to try and make sure that he can rise to the challenge tomorrow. There is, of course, the great precedent, isn't there, of Kapil Dev rising from the treatment table at the MCG in 1981 to take 5 for 28 on the last day of that Test series and to tie that Test series up against Australia.
Ryan Harris in South Africa.
Indeed.
Couldn't get out of bed that morning. In fact, you know, and somehow was did a Lazarus. So, even a broken Jasprit Bumrah is probably going to get wickets out there.
Yeah, possibly.
It has been. This pitch has been too spicy for any of the batters upon it, haven't they? Really, when your top scores are a 57 and a 61, maybe
the
best part of 3 innings.
Maybe it'll be a little bit like Larwood in 1933.
Do tell, I missed that test. I had COVID. Yeah.
Well, Larwood broke down in the Sydney Test,
right?
And but Jardine wouldn't let him leave the field until Bradman got out, and then because he wanted it to be in the back of Bradman's mind that Larwood could come back at any time, and Bradman, I think Larwood got out to Bradman got out to Verity, the spinner, and then Jardine said, "You can go now. You can go now, Harold." And apparently they both walked off together. And I think that was the last time Larwood ever set foot on a Test match field. He walked off with Bradman alongside him, neither of them exchanging a word. Oh, great story. I love that story. I've just thought of it.
Oh, great, yeah.
Okay.
You should write a book about it.
All right, so India come in their second innings, and Australia, poor Australian bowlers. I mean, they've had 2 sessions off, and yet again they have to go through their paces. And if Mitchell Starc was tired on the first day, he would look really tired today.
You can don't you just reckon that the batters are going to be like kids around Dad when Dad's really cranky? You know, like I told you kids, now I'm going to have to do that. I reckon any batter that met the eyes of a bowler was a risk taker. Well, you know, it must have been so annoyed.
Yeah.
Starc just looked annoyed, didn't he?
He did. He bowled 3 half-trackers and a half volley, and Jaiswal hit them all for 4.
He was away, wasn't it? It was kind of Slater-esque, like a Michael Slater or a David Warner start to an innings.
Yeah, so they raced to 40 off 7 overs, and geez, the game was disappearing very quickly from Australia's grasp. So what do you do under those circumstances,
You
Peter
do a
Lawler?
switcheroo.
You do the old switcheroo.
Yeah, you
do.
If you're Pat Cummins, you take yourself off from the Randwick end, you move yourself to the Paddington end, and you give Scotty Boland.
Ever reliable.
How good
The
is that
yeoman,
guy?
the workman.
Gee, outstanding.
Outstanding. Great spell. Absolutely great spell from him today. What you see is what you get, and what you get is what you always get with him. He's just so incredibly reliable. He is like a machine. He's bowled Rahul, he's bowled Jaiswal, absolute jaffa to Jaiswal. He's given Jaiswal 2 fantastic deliveries in this game, and he's given Virat Kohli 2 identical deliveries in this game that pitched in exactly the same spot, at exactly the same speed, and had exactly the same outcome, nicking him off, having him caught at slot.
And that was the end of Virat Kohli as a batsman in Australia.
Yeah.
And possibly as a Test match batsman.
Quite possibly. It's funny, wasn't it? He looked angry in that moment. There was a flash of anger and a gesture with his right fist. But as he trailed off, as I said last night, he looked a diminished figure. He looked quite introverted, quite shrunken.
Yeah, he did. He didn't want to look up. He'd been booed onto the field. He wasn't exactly booed off it. He did give himself a little whack with the bat, like he was a jockey with a whip.
If that was the end, it was a very muted end to a very dramatic and often wonderful career in Australia.
Virat may yet have the last laugh in his Test match.
He may indeed.
Let's come back tomorrow to find out exactly how this turns out.
Wouldn't that be interesting? And I think you said in your copy that, of course, he first proclaimed himself to Australians here at that Sydney Test match when he gave the crowd the finger.
Yeah, the naughty finger, the red finger, the middle finger. Yeah. 2012. Funnily enough, as I walked in here to do the podcast, I ran into Richard Collis, who's famous for giving Eddie Maguire the same finger. Yeah.
Coincidences all over today.
Please don't anybody be offended by me doing that. I didn't mean it.
Has Crick Viz got a stat on fingers?
That was a quote.
Yeah, that was a quote.
That's it.
So anyway, that brings Rishabh Pant to the crease. And
we're back there again.
What goes around where we are, what goes around comes around. And Rishabh Pant, we've sort of waited all summer to see Rishabh Pant stay for any length of time, and because it doesn't take him long to cause complete chaos. And when he hit the first ball back over Boland's head for 6, you could just feel the Australians brace, couldn't you? They went, okay.
Not again.
Not again.
This mother of effer.
Yeah.
4 6s and 6 4s later. He has made an audacious half century from 29 deliveries, I think.
29 deliveries, So Beau Webster's just taken Shubman Gill, but he then goes for 22 off 8 deliveries.
Good catch by Alex Carey.
Fantastic catch for Alex Carey. Yep. Then Stark comes back on, and just casual as you like, Pant hits him twice into the ladies' stand for 6. Extraordinary.
Consecutive 6s. One to bring up the 50, wasn't it?
Yep. So, before you've blinked an eye, the game's kind of once again been carried out of Australia's grasp. So what do you do under those circumstances, Peter Lawler? What do you do? If you're Pat Cummins, you turn to Pat Cummins.
Yeah, Pat, you got another over in you?
So there was a drinks break, and I was watching the Australians in the drinks break, and it really did look like a very earnest summer. What exactly are we going to do? But Cummins came back at the Paddington end. He bowled a wide one. Rishabh just sort of went wide with it, went with his hands, rather than wholeheartedly. He'd been playing those shots wholeheartedly. He just wafted at this one and got nicked off. And then a couple of overs later, Boland comes back and Cummins catches ready at mid off, and we're sort of into the upper reaches of the Indian tail. Now India could have been 7 down at stumps, but in the penultimate over of the day, Steve Smith had strange catching form this summer, isn't it? He's taken some absolutely outstanding grabs, and today I think that was a complete misjudgment, wasn't it? Diving in front of Khawaja at first slip.
It was going straight into Khawaja's palms, wasn't it? It was going to be a sitter for Khawaja. Yeah, he would have pouched that. But Steve Smith has intercepted and knocked it away from him, and known immediately that he's done the wrong thing.
Yep.
But he's just a little too enthusiastic in the moment, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not a bad rule of thumb to follow that if you can get it, you should dive for it. But that really was travelling straight into Khawaja's midriff, and Khawaja hasn't had great catching form. I'm sure he would have enjoyed that finally pouching one this summer. But Jadeja lives to fight another day, as does Washington Sundar, and it stumps India a 6 for 141,
which is a lead of
145.
Ooh, well done,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens tomorrow.
It is. Well, look, this test match is racing towards a conclusion. It's almost as though we can't, after a 5-day test match, we can't bear for anything to last anything longer than 3 days. The thing that we should point out, though,
we've had 2 5-day tests.
The thing that you're quite right. You're quite right. The thing that we should point out, in all fairness to the players, is that these back-to-back test matches, they are extraordinarily demanding. And it's almost as though you get to a stage where the fatigue sets in and your reflex is to just go hard at everything.
Yeah. Yep. That's it. Yeah, I got nothing left, so I'm just going to give what I got. Yeah.
And in a low-scoring game, perhaps as Rishabh Pant demonstrated tonight, you can change the ascendancy relatively quickly. I mean, in the context of this game, his 61 off 33 is just so incredibly valuable. And in the end, it might be a short Australian innings tomorrow from Travis Head, Steve Smith, or Sam Constas, even that puts this game within Australia's reach.
Well, it's only 145 runs at the moment, 4 wickets in hand. If they can, but it still feels like a significant amount of runs.
It
feels like that's going to be hard to chase.
Yep. So a lot will depend on what the medicos are able to do with Jasprit Bumrah tonight. A lot will depend on how quickly Boland and Cummins, who I suspect Australia will start with tomorrow, can do. There have been, I think, 9 overs of spin so far in this game.
Really?
9 overs. And we've got 3 spinners. So we went in probably expecting a traditional Sydney wicket, thinking that India's picked 2 and they've bowled 3 overs between them. And I don't think the pitch is going to get old enough for them to have all that much impact. So, I mean, you got to wonder whether India got their selections right. Actually, it wouldn't have been a bad test match for Rohit Sharma to come into. I think India are going to be shorter of runs than they are of wickets.
Yeah. It's not a pitch where you need extra bowling, is it?
No. Anyway, lots of talking points, as there has been after every day's play in this series. What a fascinating and absorbing series this has been. It's been great to have you with us so far. Stick with us for one more day as we wind up the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and perhaps by tomorrow evening we'll be a step closer to knowing who's in the World Test Championship final as well.
Lovely to see you in your birthday shirt.
Yes. The Labour and...
What are they doing out there on the ground?
Wow.
Laying out those... See what they're doing? Laying cones in... It's like some sort of crop circle.
Are they?
Is there some sort of special thing going on tomorrow? Anyway.
Maybe they found our podcast machine.
Just quietly. We're in the Trust boardroom.
It's nice, isn't it?
It's very nice.
Should see the wine cellar.
And I think I know where the keys to that wine cellar are.
I'm not sure whether we can get out either.
Well, it might be the night you take up drinking, Gideon.
Might be.
All right.
Okay. That's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. This evening. It's been great to have you with us. We're back tomorrow night, but in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.
Thanks for listening to Cricket et al. And if you disagreed with our analysis of the test, we now have something to say that you'll definitely agree with.
What's that, Gideon?
Well, it'd be great if our bodies weren't polluted with plastic chemicals, wouldn't it?
It sure would. Research has shown that our health is seriously harmed by plastics, which are in just about everything.
So if you take one thing out of this podcast, do your best to be conscious about how much plastic you're using and be on the lookout for alternatives.
Head to mindaroo.org/ebook for a free guide that'll help you on this journey.